3 steps because we have a concept in halacha: the one who finishes the deed, he gets all of the merit. Now, what is this merit that's spoke about in Avot? This merit mainly is the merit of circumcision, of brit milah. And Avram was only allowed to do brit milah on himself and on his sons when he was in Israel. Beforehand, we know from the Torah and the Midrash, Avram kept all the mitzvahs. All the mitzvahs except for brit milah. He could only do the brit milah. He only merited to do the brit milah when he showed up in Israel. And then God gave him the mitzvah to do brit milah, even though all the other mitzvahs he had already kept. So how come he couldn't keep the mitzvah of brit milah before he arrived in Israel? Like he kept Pesach, he kept things that didn't even happen yet. How come he couldn't keep brit milah? How come he didn't have a brit milah when he realized God was God a long time ago? The answer is the brit milah, the circumcision, is a covenant between us and God. And the world wasn't close enough to God yet. By doing the brit milah, we get closer to God. The world wasn't at that point where it could get that close to God. So Avram knew he had to wait. When God said, you're close enough to me, then you can do it. But they didn't attain that point yet, so they couldn't do it. Only when God commanded Avram, then he could do it, and that's what happened in Israel. And because of his merit, because Avram took the entire world up to the next level, from that day, 3,800 years ago until today, all Jewish males are circumcised on the 8th day. We say that on the 8th day they've already attained that closeness to God, that spirituality, because Avram elevated the world so much. And that is why we do the bris. We don't have to wait till a person achieves certain spirituality. We do it automatically to Jews on the 8th day. So, I don't know if anybody knows this. Some people here know this. I come from a long line of great rabbis. Really, 800 years ago, there was father after father after father. Was a big rabbi called Rabbi Yechiel from Paris. He's one of the authors of the Tosfot. And there were great rabbis, one after the other, and then I came along. So they say sometimes, well, I made this up, but I think sometimes, I don't know if it skipped any generations until me, I don't think it skipped any generations until me, but sometimes it skips a generation. So I'll be the skip generation, and God willing, my newborn son, mine and my wife's newborn son, little Avner, he will retrieve the family tradition of the great rabbi. So God willing, that's going to happen. Now the name of the baby. The Rambam, Nachmanides, writes about 750 years ago. The Nachmanides' son was married to Rabbeinu Yonah, was another very, very big rabbi at the time, Rabbeinu Yonah's daughter. And Rabbeinu Yonah passed away. The Rambam was still alive, and Rabbeinu Yonah's father already passed away. In the famous letter, the Rambam writes to his son and his daughter-in-law who are living in a different city, and the letter says, Mazel Tov on the kid. He sent a special messenger, so we get this before the bris. You don't have to call, he says to his son, you don't have to call the baby in my name, even though that's the custom. It used to be the custom to call it after the living grandfather. Even though it's the custom to call it after me, you should call it after the grandfather, Rabbeinu Yonah, who passed away previously. And that is the only really, that's one of only a few sources why we call the baby after a deceased grandparent or great-grandparent. So the Nachmanides writes in the letter, he writes the first pasuk in Kohelet, which we read last week in Shul on Sukkot, on Shabbos, we read in Kohelet, Uba Shemesh v'zarach HaShemesh. That's what Nachmanides writes his letter. He brings that pasuk. It means one sun sets, meaning a great man sets, and one sun rises, meaning a great man rises. So, just as the Rambam wished that his grandson keep up the tradition of the grandfather of Rabbeinu Yonah, who had recently passed, so to me and my wife, Rachel, we hope that the baby, Avner, will keep up the namesake of his grandfather, Avner, who passed away 11 months ago. And we hope for Zarach HaShemesh Uba Shemesh. If a great man left us, a great man enters into our family. Just a few words about my late father-in-law. Some of you met him when he was here about a year and a half ago. He was here for like 24 hours, so some people he came to Minyan, some people in Minyan might have met him. I know Reverend Marciano met him. Some people here met him. Basically, what we could say about my father-in-law in a nutshell is he was always happy, he loved life, When he was growing up in Bnei Brak in the 1950s, he lived across the street from the Chazon Ish, which was at the time the greatest rabbi, was recognized the greatest halachic authority in the Jewish world. He grew up, he went to Bnei Akiva Yeshivas, and then he went to the Israeli Army. And he never really retired from the Israeli Army. He did reserves until age 60, until right before he passed away. He was a major, he was an officer, the rank of major. He was one of the founders of Kfar Tzion, which is one of the refounders. There was a kibbutz in that Tzion block that was, in 1948, the Arabs, the Jordanian Legion, they killed all the men. The women and children were already sent to Jerusalem before, so they were saved. And the children of those people killed by the Jordanians in 1948 and 1968, they came back to refound the kibbutz right outside of Jerusalem in that Tzion block, called Kfar Tzion. And my father-in-law, he was one of the